Hi, and welcome to Journey Forward with Jory Rose, where you will gain insights, tools, and inspiration to get unstuck and live your best life. Jory is a licensed marriage and family therapist with a passion for helping people cultivate awareness and authenticity so they can show up fully in all aspects of their life. And now, here's Jory.
Hey there, and welcome back to this week's episode of Journey Forward with Jory Rose. As this being the first episode in December, I'm going to be talking about how to find joy during the holidays. And actually, the way that we can find joy is understanding the things that rob us of joy during this time of year. But before I jump into the episode, I want to invite you to my December masterclass, which is taking place on Wednesday, December 14th. 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And this month's masterclass is titled, Let Your Present Be Your Present. I'm going to be talking about some of those things today to kind of give a little teaser for the masterclass. But in this masterclass, we are going to be delving into all of the things that prevent us from being present with ourselves and others, and the impact that it has on our lives and our relationships and our health, and more importantly, what you can do about it. Hopefully, you know by now that I am going to be doing monthly masterclasses each month. If you can't make it live, you can always purchase the masterclass, get the replay, and it will always be available to you. And in January, we'll be doing a masterclass on cultivating a meditation practice that you can stick to. Because if you listen to any of my podcast, followed me on social media, you know that I am a huge proponent of mindfulness and meditation as the antidotes to everything that's difficult in your life, all that's frustrating, all that's overwhelming, whatever it is that causes you suffering. I believe mindfulness is the answer. And at the root of a mindfulness practice is meditation. And let me just give you a little teaser for that. It's not that hard. It's not always easy to fit into your life, but when you can understand what meditation is and is not, it's much easier to incorporate into your daily routine. And I love talking and teaching about this. But let's jump back into today's episode, in which I want to explore and invite you to consider the things that bring you joy this time of year. And more importantly, what is it that is getting in your way of receiving joy, embodying joy, cultivating joy, experiencing joy, sharing joy? And I'm only going to give 3 different ideas that came to top of my mind as I was exploring what I wanted to talk about in today's episode. So by no means do I assume this to be a complete list. However, these are things that I see most often come up with my clients when I'm coaching and doing therapy. These are the themes that rise to the surface that are pretty consistent, that rob us of our joy in our life. And I also know that the holidays, this time of year, is especially hard because with it comes so many obligations and expectations, a lot of rituals, a lot of societal and cultural norms for what the holidays should look like. And with that comes a huge range of experiences that those social and cultural norms don't always give a lot of space for. So as we delve into these things, again, I invite you to consider, what is the energy and intention that you would like to set as you enter into the holiday season, regardless of what holiday you celebrate? Because no matter what you do, it is all around us. And as you get clear on that energy and intention that you want to bring for yourself to put you in alignment with how you want to show up, how you want to feel, how you want to be during this time of year, you can get clear on the things that are standing in the way. I did an Instagram post recently talking about you learn from what you don't like, what you do like. You learn from what you don't want, what you do want, right? So in this contrast that we see all around us we get information. So if you're having trouble knowing what it is that brings you joy, we'll start by figuring out what doesn't bring you joy, and then perhaps look at the opposite of that. So delving into the first theme that I see robs us of joy in our day-to-day lives is expectations. Expectations are the quickest path to suffering. This is foundational in Buddhist thinking, that when we have an expectation, what we are really doing is attaching to an outcome that is arbitrary. We have created an image in our mind based on a story we're telling ourselves about how we want things to turn out. And that want, that desire, is usually ego-based. And when we believe that those expectations, those visions in our mind, the way that we want and think and believe it should all turn out is going to be the actual way it's going to be. And we hold on tight to that belief and we grip to it. And we oftentimes cause ourselves a lot of stress working so hard to make that expectation come to fruition. Well, anytime we are attached to the outcome, we are no longer in the present moment, all of which increases our own suffering. So consider the expectations that might be coming up for you this time of year. Some of the expectations that I see a lot of my clients struggling with are expectations regarding their family. Maybe it's their core family, of their partner and their children, of how they want this time of year to look. Maybe it's extended family expectations. How are you going to spend the holidays together? Maybe that includes travel. Maybe that includes going to multiple homes over the course of just a few days at a time. When we have expectations that are put on us by others, we are often stuck in a bind, because we have to consider, how do we draw a healthy boundary for what we want and how to meet someone else's needs for what they want? And therefore lies the big issue of family expectations. Now, a lot of people I work with tend to be conflict avoidant, and they oftentimes don't want to rock the boat when things seem to be going easy, especially with extended family members, maybe family of origin, your parents. But so often, what increases our suffering when it comes to expectations is when we are in a habit of abandoning our own self in favor of meeting somebody else's need. Now, on the surface, that might seem like we're doing a good thing because we are serving the higher good, meeting the other person's need, which can be a really healthy and appropriate response, except for when you are abandoning your own self, putting you out of alignment with what feels good to you, what you need, what is in alignment with your own self-care. And therefore, we have a challenge. How do we manage our own expectations while trying to meet somebody else's? So when that arises, when you are stuck in a bind of family expectations, I invite you to first get really still and tune into, what are my needs in this moment? And begin to understand, what might a balance look like? Because when we draw a boundary, which is one of the ways to mitigate some of those family expectations, when we draw a boundary, it's not just telling somebody no. It's not just putting up a stop sign and preventing something from moving forward. A healthy boundary is when you tell someone what is not going to work for you, and then you tell them what is going to work. No, I can't do this, but I am available for this. So you're providing an alternative. There's a great quote that alludes to the idea of boundaries are a way of loving you and me at the same time. But if you don't know what your needs are, and you're in a habit of continuously giving in to somebody else's needs, in which you are abandoning your own self, that's not self-love. And you've therefore given into the expectations placed on you. And my guess is it's going to rob you of your joy. So family expectations is a really big one. And I could delve into an entire hour talking about this, but I'm just going to kind of keep these in your little topics because there's a whole lot that comes into these challenges. Financial expectations. This might show up in how much you are expected to give. Maybe it's been a difficult financial year, and whether it's your kids who expect it or your family members of needing to keep up with maybe what you once have done, or maybe it's expectations of how much to give to your friends, extending outward. So looking at what sort of financial expectations you might be facing during the holidays. And once again, practicing boundaries and practicing really honest communication, starting with your own self around what feels appropriate to you. It's really difficult to get clear to others when you are unclear about your own needs, wants, and desires. Another area of expectations that we come up against that rob us of joy and provide more fodder for frustration during the holidays is expectations on our time and our energy. I can't tell you how many of my clients say to me that this is actually the most stressful time of year, when ironically, it's supposed to be one of the most joyful times of year. They place so many expectations on what they think they can get done, what they're supposed to get done. And oftentimes, the challenge of placing these expectations on ourselves regarding our time and energy is based on a thought, which is often arbitrary, of what we want to do. Now, I work with clients in some really practical tasks of looking at their to-do list. And if you've got 2 weeks off of work and you've got 2 weeks that the kids are at home, it can be really easy for you to come up with a huge to-do list of things that you'd like to get done. Now, I don't know about you, but my to-do list is never ending. And I know that as soon as I cross one thing off, 3 more things are going to arise. So just know that whatever your to-do list is, it's never going to get finalized. He who dies with a 0 item to-do list does not necessarily win, because they probably were not present for the majority of their life, as they were just busy focusing on the to-dos and missing the joy of the day-to-day moment. But if you can pare down your own expectations of what you want to accomplish, you will result in more joy. Now, this is a challenge for those people who are productivity oriented and who like to feel accomplished and who want to get stuff done when they're off of work. But when getting stuff done interferes with being in the moment, being with your kids, being with your loved ones, taking some much deserved downtime and relaxation, which is necessary to recharge, to get you back up and running in the new year, then ask yourself, is it really worth it? Because some of the times those expectations that we place on ourselves, again, are arbitrary. They're ego-driven. They're things that we want to do. But we want to do a lot of things, and we don't actually need to do very much at all. So getting clear on where are you extending your time and where are you extending your energy? And if it is not serving you for the purpose of fulfillment, joy, peace, happiness, self-care, then get really honest with yourself whether or not you need to continue to devote your time and energy to that task. Because my guess, the more you're going to try to get done, the more stressed you're going to be, the less present, and the less joyful and happy and peaceful you're going to be. It's a balance of needs. And this goes into personal goals and expectations, right? Really overexerting ourselves to the point of exhaustion, because we've told ourselves, I have to get all this stuff done. So I want to tell you a little story regarding, kind of setting some goals for ourselves. When I was a school counselor many years ago, I had a student who was in 7th grade who came into my office one day, and he was really, really stressed over the fact that he was assigned 75 math problems for the week. Well, he already knew to pare it down to 15 problems a night, but even the thought of 15 math problems overwhelmed him. Well, if you remember any episodes of me talking about brain science, and I'm actually going to start off the new year with some basics back to some of the foundations of the tools that I teach, so stay tuned for those if you need a refresher. But bottom line, when our emotional brain gets activated, when we get overwhelmed, stressed, anxious, you name it, any strong emotion that fires off, it shuts down our executive functioning. Our executive functioning is the frontal part of our brain, our most evolved part of our brain, where we have logic, reason, rationality, decision-making, clear thinking, language, communication, memory. So when we get overwhelmed and flooded, we can't think straight. We can't focus. We can't be present. We can't clearly communicate. So back to my story of my 7th grader who came into my office stressed with 15 math problems. He was already so overwhelmed at the thought of doing 15 math problems. He knew he wasn't even going to be able to get through those. So I turned to him and I said, you don't actually have to do 15 math problems tonight. And he said, no, I do. I said, no, you only actually have to do one. He said, no, I have to do 15. I said, no, you only have to do one because you can ever only do one at a time. If you think you have to do 15, your emotional brain's going to get overwhelmed, your executive function is going to shut down, your ability to access the resources to get those problems done is going to be offline. So when you look at your to-do list, when you set goals for yourself during the holidays, and you've got 25 things on your to-do list, remind yourself, you can't do 25 things. It's going to stress you out too much. You are not designed to multitask. You can only ever do one thing at a time. So focus on one at a time. And when you complete that, then do one more. When you can set up yourself to have realistic expectations, you are setting yourself up for successes rather than self-imposed judgment. When you feel successful, your joy increases. When you feel judgmental, your joy is going to go down. So look for the opportunities to set yourself up for success. Set up yourself with realistic expectations of what you can accomplish without overexerting your time, energy, or attention in a way that balances your needs and those around you, and then honor the successes as you get through them. I hope that this was helpful as a beginning point, is to look at these expectations. And as we transition to the next topic, I want to remind you that expectations are simply thoughts. And you have turned those into beliefs the more that you focus on those thoughts. So just because a thought comes into your mind does not mean you need to take it on as a foundational belief. I give you permission to have freedom in choosing your thoughts wisely, in choosing the thoughts that serve you best to meet your needs, and to give you also permission to honor your needs and not abandon yourself in always meeting others. Sometimes this is not always possible. Sometimes, yes, as much as I hate this phrase, suck it up and deal is just what you have to do to get through the moment. And then balance that with immense amount of self-care. Okay, so if expectations are one of the biggest things that rob us of joy, the next one is being in comparison. And during the holidays, being in a comparison mind is something that can take away all of the joy that is around us. So when I say being in comparison mind, what does that exactly mean? Well, it's when we are in a habit of viewing things through a lens of comparison, perhaps comparison to how you used to do things, Comparison to last year or the year before or the year before that. I have clients who've decided, you know what? I don't want to put up a Christmas tree this year, but I did it every other year. And I'm comparing to what I used to do to now what I want to do. And now I'm in judgment because I don't want to do what I used to do. And is that okay? So what would it look like if you didn't compare? What would it look like if you just honored what your need is right now without comparison to the way it was or the way you thought it should be? You would probably allow yourself a lot more joy. Another way that we compare is obviously to others. Well, everyone else always does this, so I'm expected that I should do this too. So to that, I'm going to say, that's who? Does the comparison mind that you're telling yourself. But if you are able to tune into your needs and wants and desires and honor them as real and true, and notice with self-compassion, increase your awareness of when you start to go into comparison to others, comparison to the past, comparison to the perceived expectation, comparison to what you see on social media, comparison to what you think others want for you, you're going to rob yourself of joy. Comparison is a trap. It takes us out of what we actually want and put us into a perceived belief of what we think we should want. Anytime we are in comparison to any aspect of ourselves or others, we are robbing ourselves of our own authenticity. And in this time of year, when we are stretched so thin, I hope that you can find as many opportunities to tune into your authenticity rather than constantly feeling that you are giving up of yourself for some version of yourself you thought you should be or that others want you to be. Okay, going into the last topic of what I see most common of the things that rob us of joy during the holiday season is being distracted. When we are distracted, we aren't present. When we are not present, it impacts our own health, it impacts our self-care, and most importantly, it impacts our relationships. So what are the causes of distraction that decrease our ability to be present? Well, the first one that I see the most common is simply busyness. The more busy we stay, the more distracted we are. Now, sometimes, and I know that I see this quite often, some of the time, people stay busy on purpose. They stay busy on purpose because they don't want to face themselves, their lives, their relationships. Because if they were to slow down and actually be present for what's right in front of them, they might realize, oh shit, I'm not happy. And that's really a hard thing to face. And I see busyness as a perceived antidote to the stress and overwhelm because it prevents us from actually looking at what is. So as you're listening, if this is resonating, you're thinking to yourself, I'm staying busy on purpose because I don't want to be around the people who I live with. I'm staying busy on purpose because I don't want to face myself, that if I slow down, I won't know what to do with myself. So I understand that that can cause anxiety and overwhelm, but I invite you to look at it right now simply as information that you can choose to respond to with greater self-compassion. It starts with awareness. Everything starts with awareness. You can't change what you're not aware of. And the more you can increase awareness of why you're doing what you're doing, then you can live with greater intentionality. Now, if you're staying busy because you truly, truly love to be busy, that's different. If you're staying busy on purpose, so you are distracted from what you don't want to face, it eventually is going to catch up with you. And I know that because I see it all the time in my work. So if you're not distracted with busyness, where else are you distracted in your life? Well, you're distracted up in your head with your thoughts. Our thoughts are one of the things that rob us of being in the present moment. We get stuck believing our thoughts. We get stuck in ruminating our thoughts. We get stuck in thoughts that are not even based in reality. They're based on what ifs. And the more attention we give a thought, the more power we give that thought. And neurons are going to fire together and wire together, connecting with nearby neurons, strengthening that thought into our neural code, becoming part of our implicit way of being. Our thoughts take us out of the present moment so much of the time. And those thoughts could be comparison thoughts, expectations. So when you notice that you are stuck up in your head and you are no longer present for who and what's in front of you, that's really important information. It might feel really hard because you've been in the habit of staying stuck in your thoughts. And again, it's simply awareness. You could be stuck in judgment of yourself and others. You could be stuck, like I said, in expectations. You could be stuck in difficult emotions. And this is a really big one this time of year during the holidays, when so many emotions arise that cause us distress, and we don't know how to unhook ourselves from this cycle of what those difficult emotions bring. And it's possible. It all starts with awareness. If you cannot recognize where, in fact, you are stuck, the ability to get out of the spiral of reactivity, as I call it, is much harder, and you just continue to spin there. We obviously can get distracted in our devices, being on our phone. I invite you to look up more. When someone is talking to you, put down your device and make eye contact. Nothing is so important, it can't wait for just a moment. That text, that email is not going to disappear into thin air if it's not responded to immediately. But the person in front of you who's trying to get a bid for your attention will feel a sense of abandonment or rejection or unimportance the more you tend to the device than you do to the interaction with the people around you. So distraction becomes one of the biggest challenges to being present. And as I mentioned a few moments ago, our lack of presence impacts us in more ways than we know, or more ways than you might actually realize. And this is what I'm going to be talking about in this month's masterclass. So noticing if being distracted is affecting your own ability for self-care, affecting your health, affecting your sleep, affecting your work, affecting your relationships, affecting your ability for experiencing joy. That's information for you to pay attention to. So I hope that this episode has given you some insight into the areas that can rob us of joy during this holiday season, and also some tips of what you can do about it. Whether you're stuck in expectations and comparisons or distractions, it all starts with awareness. And it's always got to be awareness with compassion rather than awareness with judgment. Awareness with judgment puts us right back into the pattern that is no longer serving us. Awareness with self-compassion is the way to get unstuck from whatever habit, whatever pattern, whatever mindset is not working for you. So I hope that you found this helpful. If this episode spoke to you, I would be so appreciative of giving it a rating, a review, a like, a share. And I would love for you to join me in my masterclass on December 14th, in which we'll be delving more into how to have your presence be your present to yourself and those that you love this holiday season. The link for the masterclass is in the show notes. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I hope that you all take care and be well.
To continue your journey forward, find Jory Rose on Facebook and Instagram to become part of her growing community. You can also gain access to her meditations, books, online classes, or to sign up for an upcoming retreat. Visit her at joryrose.com. That's JOREEROSE.com.